Hey there, CNCer, Scott here again for CNC Labs. Welcome back to Cottage Country CNC. We're here for another wonderful episode of Cottage Country CNC. This time we are going to do a fairly simple project, but we're going to focus in more on the volume aspect and the, I don't want to say not custom, but the volume side and using your machine as an employee, if you will, for your business or for your hobby. So you can use it to create lots of things all in one run or in a few runs to create a lot of a product. So if you're looking to sell stuff, this might be the tutorial for you. I can't say it is. It might be the tutorial for you because we're going to show you how to bang out a dozen coasters, and that's not even as many as you can fit on a LongMill, but how you can bang out a dozen coasters in a few simple steps so that you can make a whole bunch of things at once instead of creating those one-off projects that, you know, they chew into time, and let's face facts, time is money. So we are going to stop talking out here in the lovely outsideness. It's a little overcast today, but you know, we'll take it. It's up north. And we are going to head inside and we are going to continue chatting in there. So back to you, Scott, behind the desk. Thanks, Outside Scott. Now we're gonna get to the inside fun. So, like Outside Scott said, we are going to bust out a dozen or so of these lovely looking coasters. We found some nice ash stock at our local fancy store, and we grabbed some cork sheets from our other fancy location that we buy things. The whole focus on this one, again, is all about volume, though. About using that machine as an asset, as an employee, so that you can create more and ultimately spend less time doing it, because if you are trying to sell things, it will up your profit margin ideally because you're less involved, less hands-on. So we're not going to go into, again, crazy detail about the actual design and how I created everything, because that's not the point of this. That's totally up to you and your needs and your purposes and what you're shooting them for. The cool part about, you know, coasters or anything that you can use to create volume is that once you create one, you can now create, not unlimited, but you can create a whole bunch and your machine's doing the work and you're not standing there, you know, doing the work manually. Think of how long it would take you to cut out one of these coasters on its own. The outside circle, the inside pocket, cutting out the cork, and then engraving. That is, as a one by one, that is a royal pain in the rump. However, with the help of your laser and your CNC, you can bang out probably 30 of these. Like I said, my stock was 5.5 by 6 feet, 5.5 inches tall by 6 feet longish. When I cut it down to fit on my LongMill, I was able to stack 2 boards, one here, one there. You'll see when we start carving. But you could probably stack 5 boards. So if you can get 6 times 5, that's 30 coasters. That's 5 sets of coasters, 6 sets of coasters, depending on how many you're putting in each pack. And then your productivity just goes through the roof is kind of where we're going. So I started off in Illustrator. I created my graphics. I had my outline. That's the outside of my cork. That's, again, 4 inches in diameter. I did all my graphics because fishing makes me happy, and, you know, we love being outside and hiking and adventuring, and life is better around campfires when bears are cooking s'mores. So how can you get better than that? I exported these as SVGs, and then we hopped over into the Lightburn, which we have not touched in months, but I've been itching to get back into the laser side of things, and here we are. So this was very straightforward. The cork sheets that I got were not quite 12 inches by 12 inches. It kind of sucks. I was hoping to get them so I could fit a couple more on there and put them right to the edge, but it wasn't the case. So we fit 6 per sheet. If you had, again, a big roll, because they do sell it in rolls, you could bunch out. You could bunch out, punch out. You could do a whole bunch of these all at once and bang. You've already, yeah, it took you a little time to set up your file, but from a cost standpoint, to buy the pre-cut circles, one, they're more expensive. When I priced them out, this was about half price comparatively speaking to the pre-cut ones. 2, you are not stuck with a circle or a square if that's what you bought. You are able to completely customize them, which I know I'm saying this about volume, but if you are going to a dog show and you want to sell dog-shaped paw coasters, you can't find that on most places in the world, but you can make them yourself. and you can make them whatever size and whatever shape you want. And then you can create a file and you can cut out a whole bunch of them and you're already ahead. So that's where we're going. Once we hopped into Lightburn, again, it was pretty basic. You go up here and you import your SVG. I saved them out as individual files so that I could mess around with them within the program. I, again, decided I could get 6 up, so I duplicated, you know, selected, duplicate, copy, paste, move them over. This, again, is my outline of my cork sheet, so I just did that as a visual reference. I put those outlines of both the coaster cutouts and the cork sheet border on its own layer. I called it wood boundary, and I don't know if you guys know this, but if you right click on any of your layers cuts over there, it will flash within the visualizer, I'm going to call it, and show you where it is. So like the wood boundary one over here, right click, boom, shows you that that's what's on that layer. Same thing for, it's C27, I didn't rename it obviously. You right click on it, boom, it's all my graphics. Something I will show you, just in case you're not sure, when I brought in this particular file, it was, oopsie, let's move you over here. It was nice enough to stick one of the vectors on its own layer. I don't actually know exactly why it did that. However, just to change it over, you would select the layer that you don't like. And let's say I wanted to go on C27, because that's where I want my graphics to go. I just come down here, find C27, click on it. C23 disappeared, it moved on to C27, and now it's all on the same layer. So 2 tips, 1 tutorial. Woo! Anywho. Again, not spending a ton of time on this stuff. It's just getting you guys in the mindset, I guess, of thinking about volume and using that machine as an asset, as an extension to multiply your personalities. Oh, multiple personalities. Let's not even go there. Anywho, we got 6 of these guys up. Again, depending on your cork size or whatever you're cutting out size, you can create your vector boundary just so you know what's going on. From there, I have those boundaries. Actually, the output is turned off because when we save our G code, I don't want to burn that, obviously. I just was there as a visual reference. But on my actual layer, these are incorrect. I think I had this at, what did I have this at? My output was 80 and my speed per second, was it 100? I don't remember what my speed setting was. My file didn't save and I forgot that I didn't save it or it didn't save properly. And now I can't remember what my speed setting was. I'll figure that one out and I will put that in the description. Either way, my max power was either 80 or 100 and it gave me very nice detail with the lens that I was using, the G2 lens. Good detail on the hook there, the highlight, and also a very solid finish on the, you know, the filled in parts there. So I'll put that in the description. I apologize that that was not there. I forgot my file didn't save properly. So from there, you are just going to go into saving your G code. It might be out of bounds and you can say yes. Save it as whatever you want. Save your G code file. Make sure you put the NC extension at the end of it just to make sure that it forces it. You can see that these ones have already been done and this one is not obviously an NC, it's a G code. So after I got my design in, after I set up my layers with my my engraving settings and everything else, I exported and I saved, or I saved my G code. Then I exported my circles. So I grabbed all these guys, and I went to File and I went to Export. And then, yeah, you can see that Coaster Graphics 3x2. Yeah, that makes sense. That's an SVG. So I used this, so I exported this. Boom, you'd hit save. And then I went into, come on. Oh, because I have 2 open. I went into VCarve. And the reason I did this was because this was what was going to be my, the process behind this was laser engrave first, cut out cork second, right? I have one sitting right here, look, see? Laser engraved it first, cut out the cork second, because I didn't want to cut out the cork and have a chance in something moving, and then I laser engrave and it's not centered. So that's why I have things set up the way I did. This is a direct export from my Lightburn file. And so you can, the way I did it, I just imported the vectors. You can see that there's my profile cut, and when you open it, it brings in everything, which is totally cool because all I really need is circles and the outline automatically places it for me. And if it doesn't, you can just select all, F9, it'll center it, and it should line up pretty freaking close. And then you can just go in and delete your vectors because you don't need the actual vectors on them because we're going to burn them with gSender and Lightburn. So this was super simple. Once those were imported, I just obviously, here, I'll get rid of that guy. I selected all 6. I went into my profile toolpath, created my profile, and I went as just a tiny wee bit deeper than the thickness of this. Outside, I didn't add tabs because I used a Corncob bit and these held in place really nicely, and I was CA gluing and taping them in place, so I made sure there's a little bit on each one. I didn't really feel the need to ramp toolpaths. This is probably the first time in the history of me doing a project I did not ramp them, and that's because I'm cutting into cork. I figured that was like cutting into soap or jello. It wasn't going to dull my bit. So you can turn it on if you want. It won't hurt. And then you name it, and then you save it, and you're good to go. Ta-da! So we have our Lightburn file created and saved for our G-code to engrave. We have our VCarve cork file created, G-code saved to cut out our cork. Done. Do I have one here? I got one here. This is, I haven't sanded this obviously yet because I haven't sanded them all yet, but you can see this is what we're going to do. We're going to create a simple profile cut, a simple poppet.
Hello, Poppet.
A poppet. A pocket cut. And then these cork coasters, again, my pocket's just a little bit shallower, so it's got a nice little raised edge on it. Again, I'm just going to fire up another version of VCarve here, and you can see that's all really basic stuff, right? So we're not going to get into crazy detail about this, but my piece of wood was indeed, as I said, 32 1/4 long by 5.5 tall. The thickness doesn't really matter, but it was 0.5 inches. That's wonderful. Again, I created my 4-inch diameter pocket, which is all this guy is. And you can see that I went 1/8 of an inch deep. These are just over 1/8 of an inch, or yeah. They're just over 1/8 of an inch deep, which is why I did them. My hair's falling on my face. It's not even windy out. These are just a little bit thicker. I wanted that to have that little profile. I didn't want them to be flush. Again, we're not getting into those details. You do what makes you happy. I used a 1/4 inch down cut to go in there. I want to make sure I'm clicking the right thing. There we go. Yep. 1/4 inch depth per pass, which is going to be easily handled by a 1/4 inch bit. 120 and 75. These buzzed out and literally just like hotcakes. It was easy. I did ramp these plunge moves, and I did call this my pocket. Next, I did the outline. This was a profile cut. Same thing, just over the 1/2 inch that the material was. Outside, this was an 1/8 inch bit because I was trying to maximize my material. So I slowed this down a little bit. I found that 100 at 1/8 of an inch was it was okay, but it was, you could hear a couple of times where the router went, hey. So that's a very happy feed. It'll get through there. It'll do it in ash, and ash is fairly tough wood. Did I have tabs on these? Well, let's look. No tabs, because I had it CA glued and taped, so I didn't even worry about tabs. It's ramped, close. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. That went across my machine. Again, and when you see me carving it, I think I talk about it a little bit there too, where this is one piece of wood. Sorry, one piece of wood. You could easily stack 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces on there and then run the file like this. Or you could, if you really wanted to, create a big file that cut them all. It should do the same thing. The idea is just to get you thinking, hey, I created, these literally took minutes to carve 6 of these. Then it did another minute to do 12. There's no way you can touch that with manual creation with these. No way. Boom. That's about it for that side of things. I don't think I've missed anything crazy. Oh, yeah, let's talk about this, because I messed this up the first time I recorded. The new version of gSender is lovely. I don't know if you've ever used Lightburn before, or if you've ever done a burning file before. The old version of gSender, this would actually just be like black blur. It would look like, watch, I'll show you. It would look like this, no matter what you did. It looked kind of, you're like, okay, well, it kind of looks like what I'm doing. With the new version, if you click laser mode on, you're not turning your laser on, you're just going to laser mode, and then you load your file. Ta-da! It actually shows you what you're gonna do, which is just kind of nice to see what you're doing. So, again, we loaded the file, we did our engraving with our laser, we left it in place, we opened up our this guy, there we go, see? Lasered, cut them out, done. 2 sheets, easy peasy. For the wood, it was the exact same process. I think I have that in a different folder. Where, aha! I knew what I was talking about. So, in this one, we ran the pocket first. There's all my little crop circles. We did the inside of 6 of them. I moved the machine, I did the inside of the next 6. I loaded the next file, cut the profiles out of that one, moved the machine back down, cut out the profile. Boom. We had a dozen of these cut out in no time. Quick sand, quick finish, done. That's about it for this part. For the actual cutting out, I'll probably do some voiceover just so you guys can kind of get a better, or a continuation of what I've talked about here. But this is all about volume. This is all about putting you in that mindset of making sure you're using your machine. Look here. I haven't even used them as an example, but look at, boom. And it looks better now that my face is blocked too. But you can cut out 6 of these in no time whatsoever. How else are you gonna do that? So your LongMill is your employee. Treat them nice. Hopefully you're finding this, helpful and everything else. So make sure that you are liked and subscribed and linked. And if you're learning some stuff, give us a thumbs up because we really appreciate that and it makes us feel good inside. We are going to hop over to the outside portion of things where I now actually put all this quickness into practice. Let's jump outside and we'll continue the fun. All right, so it's about here that, I started having the realization that I should have had my second board already taped down as if it was a part of the first board. I made one file, and this whole project idea, this whole thing is about getting you guys to think about volume. So if you imagine, I could have had, 5 of these boards or 6 of these boards taped, parallelly. Well, I could have had them all taped together so that it acts as one big board. So again, like I said in the tutorial, you can make one big file if you have one big piece of wood or if you know how to set it up, or you can do it as individuals. Well, this is still an individual file. I've just taped down the second board so that it acts as if basically an offset from the first. So after I tape down that first board, you'll see that I go into gSender and I just offset my XY 0 by 5.5 inches, which is how tall my board is, how wide my board is. I make sure that I re-zero my Y, because if you don't, then obviously it's going to be off by 5.5 inches and it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. My Z is still the same, my X is still the same. This is just a matter of manually offsetting while using one file. So that's all we did here. You'll see that it still carves out just like it's supposed to. The only difference is I goofed up when I was supposed to glue the board down. So here we go, let it rip. So we are going to run through really quickly, or maybe not really quickly, how I use the router as well as the laser and the offset module, or I guess the offset coordinates that you can punch into gSender automatically. So I'll show you gSender first. Actually, you know what? We're going to talk about it just super quick. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the laser to engrave the graphics. Give me my tester piece. So here's my tester coaster, right? Boink, can we see? There it is, right? So there's my tester. So I'm going to use the laser to do the burning, the engraving on the cork, and then I'm going to use my router, not with a V-bit, but with the 16th inch corncob that we've already talked about and set up, to cut them all out. Now, there's a really awesome, easy way that this is all built into gSender. So if we go over here into gSender, the little coggy guy, there we go, clicky clicky, And if you go to your spindle laser options, there we go. So you can see that there's an X and a Y axis offset. So for the rest of what I'm talking about right now, I'm not talking about Z at all. I'm just talking about X and Y so that we can go from laser to carving. And it's no different than if you're changing your bit in a job, you need to re-zero your Z. It's going to be the same thing with the laser. So not on this setup here, I did this back at the shop, but I put in a V-bit and I poked my wasteboard, I poked a piece of tape and it left a little hole in it. After I did that, I took my V-bit out of my router. I turned my laser on with scrap material here so I wasn't going to damage anything. And I moved my laser, when it was centered, to the little pokey hole that my V-bit had just made. Now, the cool part about that is when you're zeroed going into that on your router bit, once you move your laser over, that's going to tell you your offset. So the cool part, like, I mean, you're getting a pinprick from a V-bit, which is why I have a V-bit in here to make a little pinprick. And when you have your laser focused, you're getting a pinprick of a line, right? So you can line that up on your X and your Y really accurately. Mine just happens to be it's 1.25 and 65 millimeters. You punch that into the offsets, it'll save it automatically. Boom, you grow out. Now, where this comes in super handy is, I again am going to engrave first with the laser, and then I'm going to switch back to the router bit to cut them out. In order to do that, you have to have that offset in there. Otherwise, I mean, you can do it manually, but this is what's trying to take the guesswork out of it for you. So you'll notice down here that when we have our laser on, we have our spindle in laser modes. Spindle obviously is your router, and laser is obviously your router. So if you are zeroed, again, ignoring Z because I'm not worrying about Z. That's a bit of a different animal. We'll deal with in a minute. In spindle mode, my X and my Y are right on my corner of my piece. Cool. And you'll watch what happens when I hit laser mode. The X and the Y automatically change to that offset that we were just talking about that we set up, right? Yours might be different than mine. All of them are a little bit, it's going to be very similar, I would assume, but maybe your plate thickness is just a little bit more, or maybe something's off by just a little bit. So do your own test to get your numbers. But watch what happens if I hit go to XY0. It moves it by that offset. Now the center of my laser is the corner of my piece, just like this just was. It does it automatically, so you don't have to do your guesswork. So now that I've hit that, I don't even have to hit re-zero, right? Because this is now 0. I can zero out my Z if I want to, but it doesn't matter. What matters is my XY on my laser is now the corner and it's my 0. I can do all my engraving. When it's done, I'll move my, when I'm done, I will come back down into gSender if I can find my mouse. I will turn off laser mode and you'll see that it has, instead of negative, now it has positive numbers. So I can hit go to XY0. It will now move it back to where the 0 is supposed to be. I'm zeroed out. Everything is good to go. I can change my bit, get my Z on my height, and carve out. That's all we're going to do. It sounds complicated. It's actually not. It makes, not automation, but it makes it a lot simpler to not have to guess every single time. I'm going to get this set up. We're going to start engraving, and then we're going to carve, and then we're good to go. So you might notice as laser beam is doing his thing over here and going along that as he's moving left to right, it's a consistent speed. Whether the laser is turned on or not, it's still moving at the same speed. And you know, for a little short job, not a big deal. But when we're talking volume and letting the machine do the work and time is money, you know, downtime is money. So I found out after doing both of these sheets here that there's a little setting over here in Lightburn under Edit and Device Settings. This guy right here, this Fast White Space Scan. Mine was turned off. I believe it's turned off by default. And if you turn it on, you can set the speed to whatever you want. And I believe it was a quick Google that led me to the 300 millimeters a second. What this setting will do is when the laser is moving back and forth over your design for, I'm just gonna hit OK on this. So when your laser is moving back and forth over your design, for places where it's actually burning, let's say like right here on the G, it's moving at whatever speed you have the layer set to. So in this case, it's 20 millimeters a second. However, when you come across here and you finish at the I and it's not burning across here to the F, it's still moving at 20. By clicking on this fast white space scan, when it moves over any space that is not actually burning, it will move at that, in this case, 300 millimeters a second. So if you think about how much time it takes to do this back and forth, and there's a lot of dead space on some of these, you know. Oh, stop. Cooperate. There's a lot of dead space on some of these. It can save you a lot of time having that fast white space scan turned on. So there's a wonderful tip for the Lightburn users out there that if you want to save some time, I mean, I would have this checked on all the time personally. I don't see any reason not to. But again, I'm not a Lightburn expert. I'm not a laser expert. So maybe we'll, you know, ask Akenna if he has any thoughts on the process or on the matter. But for the time being, I did some other coasters after I finished these ones. I turned that on and it was significantly sped up comparatively speaking to have it not turned on. So keep that in mind when you are setting up your file. End of another Cottage Country CNC episode, and we hope that you found it helpful and handy. As always, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications, dings and things and all the things, and we hope you're learning, we hope you're enjoying. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you spending some time with us, and we got a couple episodes left of Cottage Country CNC coming at you. They'll be coming up in the next, you know, couple months or so, and that's about it for the time being. So I'm gonna go before this rain cloud above me decides to start pouring on me, and we'll see you around the CNC. Dunk. Dunk. Tayan? Can you shh for a minute, please? Thank you. Back to you behind the... Oh, bugger. I'm going to have to do that part again. Instead of the... Oh, a bug just flew in my ear. Oh, gross. Yay, up north.